Good evening, everyone. I call this meeting to order the Board of Selectmen for Monday, November 3rd. We're going to start off an executive session talking about the real property values for 3 distribution center circle. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A, Clause 6, to go into an executive session to consider the value of real property, since an open meeting may be detrimental to the effect on the board's negotiating position for the tax increment financing agreement for 3 distribution center circle, and to convene an open session thereafter.
Second.
Moved in second, a roll call. Melissa?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Alex?
Aye.
Aye. Joe? Aye. Now going into executive session. Thank you. We'll be back at 7 o'clock.
So they said, but I'm sure if they bother to read ours, they'll see that there's no need for them to, that we already beat them to the punch. I think it was just
So,
Lynn
great job.
trying to
Really well done.
earn her,
Told you.
Nicely done.
she's done such a stellar job.
Would you,
I forwarded,
you get it?
yeah, because you sent it
I just
to
want to be
me.
able to make the correction that the independent got wrong, so when we start talking about the turf fields, can I just get like 30 seconds?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
All
right.
right, thank you.
I was gonna bring the same up.
I don't know if we have enough agenda to talk about.
All right, we're back in open session. The agenda for Monday, November 3rd, we just got out of executive session. 7 o'clock will be the Pledge of Allegiance and reading mail, followed by input updates from the public and from this board. 7:10, we have town board appointments. 7:20, 300th Legacy Committee talking about Littleton Common Meeting House Parkside. 7:30, talking about town meeting recommendations for Article 6, Article 7, Article 8. 8 o'clock, we have a public hearing, Act 3 Restaurant Doing Businesses, Act 3, 529 King Street. 8:20, Town Administrator and Assistant Town Administrator for Finance and Budget, talking about K-9 Police Update, and B, Staffing Vacancy Review, followed after that by Other Business, Consent Agenda, Minutes Approval. Madam Clerk, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing afterwards, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing, please, for a moment of silence in honor of the former mayor of Boston, Thomas M. Menino, whose funeral is today. A great servant who absolutely loved the city and the state. Thank you. Mr. Town Administrator, mail.
Mr. Chairman, a few items in the mail packet. One is a letter that communities in the MAPC region have received inviting proposals for technical, professional technical and planning assistance from MAPC. We will be submitting something in this. We're working with staff to come up with a list of potential projects. In the past, we've used this funding source to pay for, most recently, funds for, half of the funds needed to update the housing production plan. We've also used them as planning assistance funds for the Littleton Common Overlay District, transportation, and another initiatives. The Open Space Committee is looking to update its plan and the mapping associated with that. That could be a likely funding request along with others. But we definitely will be looking at not only what our town can do by itself, but what our town can do in connection with our neighbors to go after the funding assistance that's available in this round through MAPC.
And Keith, it says we can be involved in one community-specific and one multi-community, so potentially we could apply for 2 different things in total. Is
That's
that-
right.
Okay.
That's right. Next we have, in the packet is an excerpt from the MAPC strategic plan that was adopted last week. They've established 4 priorities, many of which deal directly with what our town works with MAPC on. Encouraging development and preservation consistent with smart growth principles, partnering with cities and towns to promote regional collaboration, playing a lead role in helping the region to achieve greater equity, and to help the region reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to adapt to climate change and natural hazards. Those are the adopted priorities for MAPC for the next 5 years. And and we'll be continuing to work with that organization and through the Magic Subregion of MAPC. Next, we have a flyer from the Mass Municipal Association announcing the annual meeting, which will be held January 22nd, or 23rd and 24th, 2015 in Boston. And if any members are interested in registering for that conference, please let us know. I've been asked to participate in a panel presentation on housing, which we'll talk about, and my presentation will be about what we're doing in Littleton to address
At the conference?
affordable housing at the convention. Yeah. So,
I'll have to avoid that one.
yeah. Oh, my wife has asked if she can come. Throw things at me, so.
So that's it. Moving on, town board appointments, being two set for today would be the council.
Oh, input.
Oh, public input, sorry, yeah. Any public input on any subject? Seeing none, Board of Selectmen.
One quick one, I think our master plan steering committee applications are due on the 14th, is that right?
That's right, a week from
So
Friday.
that's closing soon, so if you want to be on the master plan steering committee, make sure you apply. Yep, and see those applications.
I think we just have 2 applications.
Yeah, we got to
thus
get
far.
this up there. Yep, that's it.
Just like to congratulate the football team again. They won their first round in the playoffs. They got a big game against St. Bernard's this Friday at home, so come out and take a look. Good luck.
McCready? I have nothing. Isabella?
I'd just like to add, we had a moment of silence for Mayor Menino. Much has been written and said these last few days and weeks about his contributions to Boston and how much he loved the city. The things that he did do for the city, we were direct beneficiaries of that also out here in the suburbs. And we should extend certainly a great deal of appreciation and gratitude for his life and his service to the city of Boston, and ultimately to the service of us all out here, too. So I just want to add that because I think it's important as to the whole region has done well because of what he did in the city of Boston.
Thank you. Just one thing, I wanted to wish the town of Littleton happy birthday. Official birthday was actually yesterday on November 2nd, and there was, the book signing was at the Historical Society. When I was there, the place was packed, and it was another great event for the 300. So, happy birthday, town.
And an excellent job on that book.
Yeah, if you've seen the book is excellent. Like 12 or 13 different authors who took different parts in that. All right, jumping ahead, like I always try to do with town board appointments, we have one for Council of Aging and one for Open Space and Recreation Implementation Committee. Council on Aging, we have an application from Mary Patty Hunt. Are you here?
She isn't here. I expected her to be here, but I don't think she is.
I was going to give her a
But
chance.
I can, I'm Marge Payne.
Yep.
I'm current chair of the council, and I can share with you that the board unanimously voted to recommend her appointment at our last meeting, so. And she was previously served on the Council on Aging several years. It's probably in her application, I think.
I think it actually says she was chair at one point.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. So we're glad to have her back.
That's good.
Okay. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to the Town Code subsection 15-1 to appoint Mary Hunt to a term on the Council of Aging expiring June 30, 2016.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And the second one has to do with Open Space and Recreation Committee, the application of Megan Rank. I don't see Megan out there. So, a spot open, do we, a motion?
All right. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Megan Rank to an indefinite term on the Open Space Recreation Plan Implementation Committee.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Love those indefinite terms.
Okay, 5A has to do with something that's, people have been working on a long time, so if the 300th Legacy Committee want to come up front, please.
Where are we going?
Any place.
Oh, okay.
Jeff, do you want to come up front, too?
No, I'll stay here. Let them do it.
Do you have a packet? Is there a picture?
That's what's left.
Pretty drawings?
Yes, yes, we
Yeah,
do.
we have them.
Yep.
So we've been working on this for 3 years. And we're hoping that we can get this going. It's going to be called Meeting House Park, and it's going to be a patio, pavers patio around the clock, the rotary clock, which should be getting in soon. And, well, the whole packet includes the benches, and trash receptacles, but right now, we're concerned about getting the pavers in, and the landscaping around that, and that's coming to $9,088. We've got 3 estimates. Cataldo was the lowest estimate, and that's what we'd like to go with.
Okay. I think it should be pointed out to the public, the amount of work that your committee's gone through, the number of projects that you've proposed, and that all of them can come to fruition because of financial reasons, but we certainly thank you for this, and at least one of them's gonna be pulled up, the boulder's already up,
Right.
that welcomes people to town,
That's nice,
and
right.
that stands right out, and now we'll have this beautiful
Yeah.
part of the common, so we certainly thank you for this. And the well-managed part of the 300th to stay on top and have money here to have this happen, so.
Well, there's several parts to this project, so at this point, like, we want to replace all the benches, but that will have to come later as there's more money, as we know where things stand, but for now.
Right,
The
the idea
proposal
is
for now is to get the seating area done,
Right,
right?
to at least get the pavers done and the clock installed and the bushes around it. And then hopefully by next year, we can get the benches put in.
Have a nice seating.
Tony, can you give us a briefing on the 300th Committee finances?
Sure. Basically, there is approximately $35,000 remaining from the total funding that was appropriated. There were 2 sources of funding. One was gift and donations, which paid primarily for the ball and the parade expenses entirely. And then there was an appropriation of $50,000 by a special town meeting in November of 2013. And of that balance, there's $35,000 remaining. The committee's looking to expend about $10,000 for the paving area this evening.
The only correction to make is that the general fundraising went for the parade and the other things. The ball was self-sufficient.
Most of the parade was paid out of the gift account also, so.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Almost all of the
Yeah.
events were self-sufficient. There was very little appropriation
Well,
funds
for
spent.
town-wise, yeah.
It was a very successful operation.
That's awesome. Questions from the board?
So the 300th Committee has approved $10,000 for this project, Jack? Okay, at this point, so that's as much as we're doing tonight.
And we're granting approval for them to go forward.
Yes.
Yeah, approve the design and approve expenditure of up to $10,000.
And the base of the clock is already there.
Base is in, yeah.
Yeah, wondering what it was.
Yeah. Slowly but surely.
If there's no other questions, I'd look for a motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the plans of the Littleton 300th Legacy Committee for improvements to Meeting House Park at Littleton Common, with implementation of said plans to be subject to final accounting of the 300 celebration and the Assistant Town Administrator for Finance and Budget certification as to the availability of funds up to $10,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Great.
Ready to go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Great job.
Thank you. Keep an eye on the common.
Okay. Next on the agenda is special town meeting recommendations, and also at the end, we'll probably have to go through who's covering each article. Or we could do that part at the end of the meeting. But for right now, open the discussion on Article 6.
For starters, I can say that the board has already taken a motion to support Article 6, which proposes to deposit a total of $200,000 in mitigation funds from 15 Great Road into the Community Preservation Fund for active recreation purposes. I met late last week with our chair and vice chair in reviewing proposed recommendations to put before the full board tonight.
Bless you.
And in that package of proposed motions for Article 6, 7, and 8, in the proposal for Article 6, it would, if you so adopted it, it would specify that 100,000 of the 200, half of the funds, up to 100,000, be available specifically for design, bid, and construction services for 2 turf fields at Littleton High School and Alumni Field. And part of the reason for that was that there was some concern that since the community, since our original plan had been to put mitigation funds into the CPA fund in Article 6 to allow them to be taken out of the CPA fund in Article 7 to fund the turf fields petitioned article. The Community Preservation Committee didn't go along with that plan, that they voted, the motion to approve funding for Article 6 in the amount of 100,000, or Article 7 rather, failed by 3 in favor, 4 opposed, 1 abstention, with 1 absent. So, the question was, what do we do with $200,000 that with funds that were, the hope of which had been to be able to support turf fields? So the suggestion that we came up with was, since the law allows town meeting to earmark the revenue, the purpose of revenue going into the Community Preservation Fund before it goes there, perhaps we would want to give the voters at town meeting the opportunity to earmark $100,000 in Article 6 for a specific purpose, namely to fund turf fields, so that the voters there assembled had a chance to give us their opinion on turf fields in a positive way, and whether they would like to see this money used for turf fields or not. As we've said before, the advantage of putting mitigation funds into the CPA fund is that it increases the base for state match. For putting $200,000 in the CPA fund gets us somewhere between the town, somewhere between $50,000 and $70,000 in state, in matching funds. If we don't, and this jumping ahead a little bit to what Article 7 is, but since the current recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee eclipses the ability of the voters at town meeting to take out $100,000 from the CPA fund to fund turf fields, then we're left with having to find an alternative source of funding for Article 7. And among the alternative sources of funding that we've identified is yet other mitigation funds that have been collected, that are sitting there, that are not accounted for in Article 6, which only has $200,000. In fact, we have $350,000 in mitigation funds that have been received for 15 Great Road. So the notion was you could still put $200,000 in Article 6, and there's still another $150,000 in mitigation funds that could be drawn from to fund the $100,000 that's needed in Article 7. The hope was that the thought was that there should be an opportunity for the voters to tell us in Article 6 how they feel about turf fields. And if there were to be overwhelming support evidenced in Article 6, then, since the Community Preservation Committee would actually be convened at town meeting on next Wednesday night, that they might be amenable to revisiting their vote, and I say might, there's no guarantee, but they might be amenable to revisiting their vote in light of the expression of the voters at town meeting. There's no guarantee about that, but might be worth a shot. But even if the Article 6 motion were to pass, either in its original form or an amended form, where we earmark $100,000 for turf fields, that even if it were to pass, if the Community Preservation Committee doesn't change its mind, its recommendation, then we must find another funding source for Article 7. And the most obvious other funding source would be the remaining mitigation funds. The concern in use of mitigation funds, without putting them first in the CPA fund, is that we won't get matching funds, that we will deprive ourselves of $25,000 to $30,000 in state matching funds. But it won't be our fault. It will be because the Community Preservation Committee hasn't given us the opportunity to do that. So that's it. We feel that we need to provide the town meeting with options to consider in the event that they want to approve the articles that are on the warrant. We need to find a funding source for Article 7, and we can, for the turf fields, and we can do that by drawing the money out of the mitigation fund directly if the Community Preservation Committee doesn't give us the ability to take it out of CPA funds. I personally would feel strongly that no matter what happens, I'd love to get $50,000 to $70,000 in state matching funds by putting $200,000 in for active recreation in Article 6.
Totally agree.
That we've absolutely got, we've got infinitely more than $200,000 worth of recreation projects in this town. And it would be a shame not to put the money where, in the CPA fund, where we could actually get $50,000 to $70,000 in state matching funds.
I'm really bewildered why it didn't go down that way the first time around, but I totally agree.
Before you probably want to say something, but I think as a Board of Selectmen, we don't know how the vote's going to come out, but there's a good chance, the feeling is that this article might pass. It's our responsibility, from my viewpoint, to have it funded the best way possibly for the town and for the town to gain something from it. So that's why I was dumbfounded by that vote, because it doesn't make any sense if we don't have the opportunity to take it out that way. If it gets voted that way, then we have to take it out of that fund when we could have put money right in there and the town gave money. So I had a problem with finding the logic in it, because the CPC would have been gaining $50,000 to $60,000 for the town for their use on other projects that could have come up, so.
The other thing, just to mention one thing about the overall strategy here. Number one, it's to give a voice to the voters at town meeting who are going to be there and who are going to vote what they want to do. They will tell us what they want to do. And we want to make sure that we have the ability to hear them when they tell us. At the same time, we would like, as the chair says, we would like to have the most financially sound practice or method of paying for it. So even if we're not able to get the Community Preservation Committee to change its mind next Wednesday night, that the actions taken by this November's town meeting could be subject to amendment at the May annual town meeting. So, for example, if we vote to say that the funding source for Article 7 is mitigation funds directly. If that's what we say now in November 2014, we could work towards May of 2015, when we bring this article back, amend it, and say that, all right, hold it, instead of spending the money directly, as I described, we would go back and amend the vote to do the two-step process that's envisioned in 6 and 7. That is, put 100 in to CPA, take 100 out of CPA, and you get the state matching fund. So we would still have the ability to bring an amended vote forward to a May town meeting. That would still require the approval, the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee in order to do that. But there's a difference between having a conversation in a couple of minutes on a Wednesday night in November versus having a long discussion, and I'm sure it'll be a long discussion this winter and spring, to go back to town meeting and hopefully having a better plan that everyone is invested in. So,
I think it's worth noting, too, that, at our last meeting, or the meeting prior, we had a joint meeting with the CPC, and they voted in session in favor of Article 6. And during the discussions, we specifically said, this is a good thing for the town to deposit money into CPC, get the matching funds for the state, and then we can then spend the money for the design, construction costs for the fields. That was in the discussion. We had a lengthy discussion, I thought a very positive discussion. There was a little heat within the CPC, but they voted in the affirmative for the 200,000. And then for them to come in and just, I guess not arbitrarily, but they changed their mind at their meeting to say, no, we're not going to expend the money out in Article 7 is just beyond any comprehension. I just don't understand it or what their thinking was, so.
I think that's an unfair characterization.
Well, you can have your turn to say whatever you want to say. The point that Keith brought up in regards to making the adjustment later on just makes sense. The right thing for the town to do is to put 100,000 for recreation, the 100,000 in for the design construction of the turf fields into the CPC to take that benefit of the matching funds from the state. Then we can deal that out if on town meeting floor, CPC doesn't reconsider their vote, and Article 7 passes with a motion to use other funding sources. In May, we can make that adjustment later on by doing our diligence. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I speak now, Mr. Chair? Sure. Of course. Well, I think you are blending the lines a little bit too much about whether it's wise financial policy to put money into CPC and get our percentage, whatever the state's percentage is going to be, back. That is solid financial policy, and that should withstand no matter what we're going to do with that money. That's a good move. And I assessed the way they were thinking more like, okay, that's a solid policy, we should do that. And by the way, this board should do that. We should support that. I don't think, I think it's a stretch to make the connection that it makes no sense at all that they would do that and then turn around and say, and not approve the application for project money for artificial turf. I think the two things are separate. And I would look at Article 6 and say, look, are we going to accomplish this? It's good, sound policy to do that. Let's do that in one way, shape, or form. And then let's figure out how we're going to come up with the money, should town meeting so vote, to proceed with the turf fields. But I think that's exactly where CPC drew the line. They said, well, okay, this is good for future work of the CPC. And I don't think we were offering the money contingent on their approval of the turf field.
Right.
And that's how you're characterizing them. Maybe it's not your intention to do it that way, but I've listened to several people here second-guess the judgment of the CPC. They had their debate, they had their discussion, they want the money in CPC, and they weren't ready to make a decision about their support of the turf field. That's pretty clear to me.
The Article 6 wouldn't have happened if the voters' petition was not brought forward, period. Article, and I'll say it again, Article 6 would not have happened if the voters' petition was not brought forward.
We
So
have been
that being
discussing this
said,
for quite some
that-
time.
No. That being said, as the Board of Selectmen, we said, okay, what's the best funding sources for the town? We have mitigation fund, 100,000 of which was for active recreation, and 100,000 that was pure mitigation funds. We said, okay, that we have the money because the original amount was 200,000. Let's put the money in the CPC for Article 7, because we know that's coming, and to CPC for the matching funds. That's how Article 6 was actually birthed.
Well, I don't think
thought
that's
of.
entirely true either, because we've been discussing...
Okay, so when did
for
we start talking about the CPC fund, Alex?
quite some time ago, when Keith started to report to us on a regular basis that we can get matching funds back. And it has been a discussion that has not been entirely connected to the future of turf fields in this town, and it shouldn't be connected. Should we be able to access that money for the turf fields? Well, that's a judgment of the CPC to make.
Article 6 is based on a voter petition coming forward for turf fields.
In its present form, I agree with Jim in that regard. I think the CPC, though, that evening when we had the joint meeting, I think Mitt actually went beyond to try and make the point that evening. They were voting to accept the money. And actually put a king's X at that point. We vote to accept it, and that's where that ended. Now, certainly there's been the hopes and aspirations of a great many people that this provides the vehicle to fund going forward. That's shared by many people, but also shared by many people, I believe, is that it's good financial policy to take that and get the matching funds from the state. So yes, let's go ahead and put the money in there. And active recreation and a turf field falling under that category. So those connections are made. But that's not shared by everybody. And I dare say there's a great number of folks who probably feel that, yes, I'm happy to put the money there, but maybe not use it for turf fields, use it for something else. We just need to acknowledge that, and there's nothing right or wrong about that. I just think that happens to be the case. So you're right in the regard that 6 probably wouldn't have come about at this town meeting had the turf field petition not come about, because folks trying to do some very good things, and where can we find money, and not only where can we find money, but here's an opportunity to get state matching funds, that makes good sense to put the money there. I wouldn't tie directly the CPC's vote that evening to a reversal to the way they voted the other evening. It was one to accept the money. Now, somebody could make the case, well, if you voted to accept it, knowing that a great number of folks felt this way, maybe you should have expended the money in that regard also. That becomes a totally separate discussion.
The other vote that the CBC did take at our joint meeting in September was that, and I think it was unanimously, they voted to find that the turf fields design project was eligible for CPA funding. They have a two-step process. Step 1 is eligibility, the next is acting on a funding request. They took the first step of eligibility, in part because we hadn't finalized what the number was yet. We have 200,000 in the warrant. Ultimately, the PMBC indicated that the correct figure for us to use is 100,000. And that was the amount that was requested by the petitioners of CPC. And it was that request that was then turned down, that did not get a majority.
I think we're all in concurrence. We'd like the money in there.
I would think
And we
so.
ought to support that and get the matching fund. I don't think anybody disputes that.
Yeah, we've already voted to support it anyway, so
Well, you voted to support the article, then the question is, do you want to move the article as presented, which is not specify any of the amount for turf fields, or do you want to specifically propose a motion that earmarks 100,000 of that 200 for turf fields.
And I would propose that we do that so the people of town, at town meeting, have the opportunity, because without CPC saying we're going to accept the application, the townspeople don't have a choice. They can't vote on Wednesday whether or not 100,000 should go for turf fields because of the actions of CPC. This way, if we have active recreation 100 and 100 for turf fields, as Keith has said, the townspeople will have an opportunity to vote their voice.
So what would the motion, would we stay within the so-called four corners by, so what I'm hearing is we're gonna put some into CPC, and then we're gonna take some and we're gonna put it.
No, it's all going into
It's all going
CPC.
It all goes
It all
into the,
goes to
it all
CPC.
goes into the CPA fund, and it's, the proposed motion is this page here. So it's add the italicized words where it says, of the 100,000 in paragraph 1, it says, said sum to be available for design, bid, and construction services for 2 turf fields at the Littleton High School and Alumni Field. The second $100,000 would not be specified for a particular project.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a
All going into the
If all
CPA fund?
200,000 goes into the CPA fund recreation reserve, half of that would be earmarked for a particular project, the other half would not be. But all of it would be, all 200,000 would be for active
But
recreation.
that would still be subject to the approval of the CPC. And that
Ta-
they would have to accept, approve the
taking-
project and recommend.
Taking it out, well, here's the distinction, that town meeting does not require the Community Preservation Committee's approval to put the money in for a particular purpose. Town meeting does require town meeting's approval to take it out for a particular purpose. And that's where it's sort of the issue of, democracy comes in, that if you've got a strong feeling on the part of the voters at town meeting about the purpose for which funds are being put in, can that inform the CPC of how they take the money out? And I think there's a larger issue here because it, just a couple of weeks ago, we had a discussion about a playground, about the Castle in the Trees playground, where the thought was that there could be a private fundraising effort. And wouldn't it be great if the private funds that were raised for that project went into the CPA fund to increase the base for the state match? We could receive the funds, we could put them in, we could have town meeting vote to put them in the fund for a particular purpose, but the way things are right now, we have to say, we can't deliver on what the vote of the Community Preservation Committee is to take them out.
But they'll still be specifically marked for those
But they would be,
projects.
but those funds would, believe me, the private fundraising that's being done for a playground is only going to be given to the town if we use it for the playground. So there's some basic common understandings that we need to reach between this board, the Finance Committee, and the Community Preservation Committee. If we're going to be in this new game that we're in now of finding funds to put into the CPA fund, to me, that expands the scope of the discussion, not simply to what the CPA wants to spend the money on, but also on what the community wants to spend the money on, because the money's coming from the community.
And it's the right thing to do. Putting the money in the CPA fund is the right thing to do. We get matching funds. Now, the CPC need to realize that the townspeople will speak at town meeting to say, we support this for this project. You can't get any louder or clearer than that. So, Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to accept the motions as written for Article 6, one being the 100,000 for the turf, and the second for the 100,000 for general recreation.
Before we do it, we'll open it up for, just quickly, if you,
Before you go to the
ahead.
public, is it possible that the motion can be crafted splitting splitting it so that the 100,000 doesn't have to go through CPC approval, and it is earmarked? Or is that going outside of the four corners of the article?
Well, if you don't, see, any money that goes into the CPA fund, as a matter of law, is subject to the CPA's approval to take it out. So the only way you could avoid the CPA is never to give them the money in the first place. And then that denies us state matching funds. So it's,
But we're talking 200,000 here, we need 100,000 for the design.
well, you could, the only way to accomplish that is of only having 100,000 be subject to the CPC, is to only put 100,000 in Article 6, and then you're leaving that, you're leaving 100,000 on the table, as it were, in the mitigation fund where it is now, and you could use that as the funding source in Article 7. We're proposing a slightly different approach, that is, since it's on the warrant anyway, and you've got 200, you have the ability to put 200,000 into active recreation, and I'm not hearing a lot of opposition to putting 200,000 in for active recreation purposes, and to maximize the state matching funds. So that seems like an absolute good thing that we should do, because it has the benefit of getting the state matching funds. We are, I guess, going to have the discussion about whether you're going to earmark 100,000 of that for a particular purpose or not. In Article 7, though, if you, as I said earlier, if you don't get the CPC to change their mind and let you take it out, then we go back to the mitigation fund where we still have another $150,000, and we grab another 100 of that. 200,000 of mitigation funds is put away into the CPA fund to get more state matching funds, and then you grab another 100,000, total of 3.
Does that require a town meeting vote?
Yeah, yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes.
So that
And
would
that's
be-
why the motion, that's why, no, it would be Article 7,
Okay.
where you could take it directly as the funding source.
I did. Motion's been made. Before I ask for a second, I will open the floor for discussion only, not on the turf fields, but only on the funding of the CPC. Identify yourself.
Jared Opiory, New Estate Road. I want to talk on 7, but that's a little bit later. I don't think the selectmen should be at the point in 6 of saying, well, we're going to take a certain amount or put in the CPC and earmark it towards a specific project that may or may not get approval down the road. I agree 110% with you guys that put the 200K in there, we get the state match, and then it seems like the CPC can, if Article 7 passes overwhelmingly, they can change their mind right on the floor. But I think if the selectmen were to say, well, we're going to earmark 100 grand of the 200 going in for Article 7, then it sounds like the selectmen are wholeheartedly backing Article 7, and I think that's a little premature. I think the voters should be able to speak on that as a separate item.
It's an excellent point, but I think it's important that if the town meeting votes, if the Community Preservation Committee has not been asked to revisit its vote, and we get to Article 7, and there's a vote on Article 7 to approve it, well, it will be approved and there will be a vote taken to take it out of a source other than the CPA fund. We don't revisit votes, we don't reconsider votes, we don't go back to them. So there's no opportunity on November 12th to take another vote or reconsider the vote on Article 7. So if you're in favor of using CPA funds for turf fields, and the CPA hasn't, and the CPC hasn't taken a vote, you get that opportunity in Article 7. So the only place to have the discussion, we're saying, is Article 6. So if you earmark, whether that's done by the Board of Selectmen or it's done by a motion on the floor of town meeting to amend even if this board said, we'll go with the main motion to approve Article 6 as posted, there could still be an amendment on the floor to accomplish the notion of earmarking 100,000 for the turf. Either way, whether it's by this board or whether it's by a motion from the floor, that it would provide the opportunity for a discussion under Article 6 before it's too late.
Okay, Jim,
But then,
excuse me. You have to be called on, you just can't stand up and start talking. No, you've had your chance. You have a motion?
I made the motion.
Can you do it again?
Make a motion that Article 6 have two motions, one for 100,000 for the deposit into the CPA fund, for 100,000 for the turf field, for the design construction, and 100,000 for general recreation.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? It passes.
An abstention.
What was the vote? 401?
For ayes.
Abstention?
401.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to Article 7 on the support of the turf fields. Jim, do you want to start opening with this?
Yeah, so this is just to actually support the voters' petition, to ask this board to support Article 7, the voters' petition for turf field design. And to use, again, there'd be two motions. If the CPC considers their vote and votes in the affirmative to support the design construction, the 100,000, then the motion would be read as such. If the CPC does not reconsider their vote, a motion for the funding in the Article 7 passes, the motion for, would read to use other mitigation funds of $100,000. So, tonight we got to decide, A, are we supporting Article 7 for the turf field design construction cost for $100,000? And B, if CPC doesn't, would we support the motion to use other mitigation funds?
Discussion by the board.
Well, I guess I'd just like to say something very generally. So I know this topic has had a lot of heated debate, and I think one of our most popular sessions was when this first came around. And so I've been doing a lot of research into what this really means, pros and cons, all of that type of thing. And I guess for me, bottom line, this is a problem we have to solve no matter what. There's huge community support behind it. I think a lot of planning has been done on options and what we recommend we should go forward with. So, I guess I'm putting my support completely out there. I'd obviously support motion A and then motion B if not.
When the proponents first came to us, we asked them to provide a bit of a breakdown as to what the use requirements are, what the uses would be, the availability, that is, I guess, a better way to say that. And I'm going to just use the term field units. So how many field units do we have available to us today? Given that we have a winter season that comes upon us, and during the spring, summer, and fall, we can use the fields also many times based on the use of it, the abuse of it, if you will, and then what weather and darkness does because we don't have lighting for it. So that's a finite number of some sort. Now, if we go to turf fields, turn two of these fields into turf fields, it changes that dynamic somewhat. And we can all at least intuitively say it increases it. But increases it by how many? We've asked for that information, and we've not received that at this point. We asked for some life cycle cost analysis. We've not received that to this point as to what it costs to maintain the fields today, to provide them. So what does it end up being per field unit, so to speak? We were advised that the town of Acton is able to rent fields out. So if we were going to build these turf fields and then depend on some rental income, that means we'd have a surplus to our own personal needs here in town. What is that surplus? Again, that has not been provided to us. I like the idea greatly. We don't know what it's going to cost, and we've asked proponents to provide us that information as to using their best estimate, going out there and doing that sort of analysis, and that's not been presented. If it's done, please present it this evening. It'll be very useful. I'd ask why it took until this very moment, if you do have it, to present it to us, because I think it's very important for us to be able to make a valid decision on it.
Before I open it up, one of the proponents, would you like to answer, Mr. Ravella?
Yeah, Kevin Hunt, Neshoba Trail. I have prepared a schedule with the help of Mike Glynn, the athletic director, and also with a meeting with Ken Beck, Littleton Youth Football, Mike Crory here from Littleton Youth Lacrosse, again, speaking with representatives from the Littleton Youth Soccer, who are the main beneficiaries being the high school and the youth sports who get the use out of these fields. So I do have a schedule prepared, which shows both fall season and spring season, the amount of time that we would be able to get use out of these fields. Currently, as you know, Alumni Field, the town invested, I think, $160,000 back in the 90s to light that field. Currently, that field gets about 150 to 200 hours of use a year, which is very low. I mean, when we have an asset there that we're not utilizing, by going ahead and turfing these fields, right now, there's not a high school team that practices on that field. There's not a youth team that practices on that field. We get about 7 to 8 high school football games played there a year. There might be another 4 or 5 soccer games, high school level, played there a year. Youth football utilizes it in the fall, for 5 or 6 weekends, typically 5. And then in the spring, we used to use it for boys lacrosse. That's no longer the case because the field can't stand up to it. So the girls' high school lacrosse utilizes it, and girls' youth lacrosse utilizes it. So all total, the hours that we were able to figure out with that was approximately about 200 hours of use that field gets. By turfing the field, our estimates, and again, we're trying to provide our best estimates, and I do have that information here, we're going to increase that probably 6 to 7-fold up to over 1,000 hours of use just for the town itself. Beyond that, the months of June 15th through August 15th, when high school sports are no longer in session and the youth sports are no longer utilizing the field space, there's the availability to rent those fields. There's a high demand. I drove past Acton Boxborough the other night in the middle of rainstorm, and it was 42 degrees out, and their fields over there are lit up, and there's people, everyone playing soccer out there. There's a demand for turf fields, and we realize that putting a price on it, I think we'd have to get together with Kate Hodges at the Park and Rec to come up with a real firm number of what she felt she could rent those fields, or the amount of time. But again, you're looking at those months of 10 weeks in the summer where you would have upwards of 8 to 10 hours a day that those fields could be generating revenue to help pay for this project. I think, again, one of the things that we've looked at with this too is the benefit of these 2 fields. These are the 2 fields in town right now that will benefit by turfing them. We're going to get the benefit of both the high school kids using these fields as well as the youth. Developing other properties in town is not going to provide any place for the high school kids to play. And right now, if you go look at those fields, we do have a PowerPoint we've prepared for town meeting. I've had the ability to take some aerial photographs of the fields to show you the conditions. They're in poor shape. The field behind the high school is just getting worse and worse, and there's no opportunity to regenerate these fields. There's no place to take a field out of use and move those teams to other fields. Right now, the other issue with the high school field is very simply the grading is so poor, it really only lends itself to a football field because nobody wants to play soccer because the ball just rolls out of bounds. It's actually a dangerous field to play on. You can't use it for field hockey really all that well either. So I do have some information that we've put together for you. I'd love to bring it up to you as far as the schedules. The overall cost is what we've projected is to put these in is in the range of about $800,000 per field. I'm sure there'll probably be some additional items in there that may raise it up to 1.6, between 1.6 and 1.8. What we're looking to do right now is get the plans funded, because by doing that, we've got a mechanism to go forward. I really believe that this is going to happen. We've got the support behind the town, whether it's this spring that we can implement this, but it's these fields here. I really believe that the high school deserves it. The sports programs, the kids that are playing on these fields, we owe it. That the high school field, the alumni field, is not a nice field to play on. It's dangerous. By doing this, we're going to increase the use of it. And we really don't have any other place to move these teams, to redevelop these fields. You know, that's what I have, so if you'd like it, I'll bring it up here right now.
I'd like the opportunity to review the data before we vote on it personally, because it's important to me it's quantitative. The qualitative, I don't think there's probably anybody in the audience or on TV who disputes the qualitative issues of this. It's the quantitative. You know, what's it going to cost? You know, what do we gain by it?
I legally have to open a
Yes, sir.
public hearing. Excuse me. We have a public hearing at 8 o'clock. I legally have to open that up, and I'll postpone it till, and we'll continue this on. Keith, so just have to read it and...
Yeah, just,
Okay, the Board of Selectmen public hearing, common victuals license, Yosli Noljera, I know I blew that name, doing business as Act 3 Restaurant Incorporated, 529 Littleton, Mass. The Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Monday, November 3rd, 2014, 8 o'clock, in room 103 of the Town Offices, Building 37, Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. To consider the application from a common victuals license as requested by Yosli Noljera, manager of Act 3 Restaurant Incorporated, doing business as Act 3, located at 529 King Street, Littleton, Mass. 01460, property identified on Assessors Map U07, Parcel 7-0. Comments thereon may be submitted in writing to the Selectmen's Town Administrator's Office at 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. by no later than Friday, October 31st, or in person at the hearing. All interested parties are invited to attend Board of Selectmen. So I call that opening. I hope you can bear with us while we finish up on the one before it. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll reopen it again. Sorry, Paul.
No. That's all I was going to ask, is that we have the opportunity to review it before we did call for a vote.
I'm going to get to you because you have a, do you have materials here that you can? Mr. Correa, as a petitioner.
Yes. Michael Croy, New State Road. Just a couple things on, I know you want to hear about maintenance and things like that, cost-wise. Westford currently has a contract, 8-year contract, $17,000. That's $900 a year to maintain that field that they have there. Currently, Park and Rec pays $30,000 a year to maintain. That's a $21,000 savings for Park and Rec right there. Currently, through Park and Recs for the highway, you should have one person for every 13 acres. Jim's able to get 2 guys for 62. So to take 2 fields off his plate, I think would help out the highway department. And to try and create more grass fields would just mean more acreage for these guys to have to try and maintain. So that's all.
Ask the maintenance money. The maintenance money we're talking about is how many fields in Westford?
Westford has 3.
3.
And the total budget for maintenance is what?
$17,000 per
For
field.
all 3?
Per field.
Per field?
For 8 years.
Okay.
So
I think
2 fields would be $1,800 to maintain.
Per year?
For 8 years. Right. Per year. Per year. Correct.
For 8 years, that's 2,000 plus a year.
Okay.
17,000.
Can I make a comment here, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It's just about a,
It's still on the board's discussion.
okay. So, you know, I'm reading Article 7, and it says vote a petition. And, you know, we've had discussion, we've had goals about voter participation. We talk about getting the town energized in regards to their participation. There are voters out there that are energized at this point. So I think that, and we've said it, you know, if voters will get involved, people will get involved when it's something near and dear to their heart is brought forward. And I think this is a perfect example of voter participation and folks in town letting us know, just like the track, you know, as administrators of this town, we have folks coming forward to say, you know, this is needed, we want it. This is our town, and we want to be responsible for it, so I just wanted to make that comment.
Mr. Fontenot, afford you the opportunity, something was in the paper that was false. I know you want to make a
Yeah,
comment.
appreciate the opportunity to clarify something. In an unfortunate reporting error, the Independent stated last week that the Littleton School Committee voted not to support Article 7 at the November 12th town meeting, which supports the use of CPC funds for the design of artificial turf fields. In fact, the school committee took 2 votes in regards to turf fields, and both passed. The Littleton School Committee is on record as supporting both the use of turf fields by our scholar athletes and the use of CPC funds to fund the design of the fields. The first vote we took was a motion, quote, approving the use of the high school fields and alumni field for turf fields as subject to town meeting approval, close quote. This motion passed unanimously 5-0. A second motion was made to, quote, support CDC funds, Article 7, to be used for turf field design, close quote. This motion also passed on a 3-2 vote. Our discussion on these votes considered the currently poor condition of the high school fields, the very limited use of alumni field in order to keep it playable, the benefit of turf fields in terms of being able to sustain more traffic without degrading, the high cost of maintaining grass fields with little benefit realized, safety concerns regarding the current state of the fields, and being able to open turf fields earlier than grass fields in the spring. There were also concerns raised on the health issues of playing on turf fields, as well as a current lack of information on cost comparisons between grass and turf fields. In addition, there were concerns specifically regarding Article 7 in terms of the process being used regarding a citizen's petition rather than having the article brought forward by a town board such as the Selectmen, Park and Rec, or the Community Preservation Committee, as well as a perceived lack of time to gather more information. But after this wide-ranging and robust discussion, the votes were taken and both motions passed. And it should be clear to Littleton voters and residents that as a school committee, we support the use of turf fields for our students if the town, via town meeting and the ballot, sees fit to fund and install them. So I just wanted to make that clear because it was a big error by the Independent. I appreciate the opportunity to put that out there tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any other comments by the board before I open it up to anyone else? Anyone up for any comments? Jerry?
Jared Elpieri, New Estate Road. I see this as a special interest petition, the special interest being the folks that are, we want everything for our kids. I read the article, you gotta scratch your head when they're talking about turf. I think turf, grass, no, it's artificial turf. And I wonder how many people are aware that this is basically starting us down the slope to having to plunk down by their own numbers, what, $1.6 to $1.8 million to cover 2 fields with artificial grass? I mean, that's what should be made very clear to the voters, and then let us decide, not, you know, not turf, and, oh, well, it's only 100 thou. Just make it very clear that what we're talking about is plunking down close to $2 million for 2 fields. And that's where I want to see the numbers and justify it. And I think one of the reasons the CPC may be not supporting this is they see it as more of an extravagance than a real need, and the money could be better spent elsewhere.
The only thing I want to say, Jerry, if I can, is that we're not talking about the 2 million right now. We're talking about the design money. That's all that we're talking about right now, so that.
Oh, I know, but people ought to be aware of what that's going to lead to next May.
We've made them aware of it, and the voter information that went out to all the voters. that it was one of the questions the Finance Committee had asked before they took their vote was, could we include, just for the voters' information, what the total project cost might be? And it's, it matches the information that we've had from the petitioners as well, but it is included in the information that went out to all the voters.
Fair enough.
Anyone else? The gentleman in the back there?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chuck DeCoste, Matthew Drive. Just want to make it clear, it's two locations, not two fields. Field, especially at the high school, it is striped for 3 flag football fields, soccer, field hockey, multiple lacrosse fields. The striping that has to go on at those fields, the cost for the striping of those fields, there's a lot more benefit that you're not necessarily realizing. It's not 2 fields. It's, actually, Mike Lee could probably answer better, but there's probably 11 different fields that have to be striped up at the high school alone in order to make that field usable for both the high school and for the youth. And to piggyback on what Mr. Grory said, the DPW is taxed. They've got 2 people to stripe all these fields, to cut all these fields. And in the springtime, as the president of baseball, we didn't know if we were going to have cut grass or not, or if the fields are going to be striped. There's very limited resources, and what this is going to do is benefit all of the programs. Even though baseball won't be playing on Alumni Field or up at the high school field, the resources are going to be available to take care of the other fields where in baseball, softball will be utilizing them. So there's a benefit far beyond just the 2 locations, not fields, that are being proposed. And again, to the chairman's point, this is not about the project, this is about the study. Design, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hunt?
In keeping with what Mr. DeCoste said, one of the items of contention, I guess, at the other night was at the CPC was the issue of that it was resodded. It was asked about the Alumni Field was resodded back in 2012 after it was in extremely poor condition, and I think the Littleton Youth Football kicked in some money and different people kicked in some money to sod it, and the cost was around $10,000, and I saw people on the CPC looking at, trying to figure out, boy, this $10,000 and you want us to spend all this money to turf it. And I think one of the issues that has to come out of that is, again, we resodded it 2 years ago. It's already looking poor. We haven't increased, by doing that, we didn't increase any usage on that field. We didn't get anything more out of it. And we're going to be in the same boat we were in 2 years ago in another year, needing to spend more money to, returf this or resod this field. I don't want to say turf it. And we didn't solve any of the other field issues that we have in town. As you know, there's motions with the Morgan property and the Cooper property that I've heard about expanding field space in town. And as Mike had said, we're only going to be up against more maintenance costs for these fields, more water demand for these fields, road development to get into some of these locations, and such. And all that costs money. And right now, we've got 2 fields in town here that are assets we already have. They have the infrastructure, the fencing, and we've got bleachers down here at Alumni Field. We've got the parking at the high school. It makes sense where these fields are already utilized and they're in poor shape to look to turf it. There's been, in the last year alone in the United States, there was over 1,500 turf fields done. In the last, how many years was it that there's been 11,000 put in?
11,000 total built.
Right, there's been 11,000 built in the last 15 years. But in 1,500 of those were just last year alone. Schools are, and I think communities are seeing the benefit of that. And, we've spoken to some of the other athletic directors and park and rec directors in the areas, and we've heard nothing but rave reviews about the usage that they've gotten, how it's helped their field situation. And we're in the same situation in all these towns and schools we're in, with schools, the fields that were just not adequate for the amount of sports that they were asked to be in to support. As Chuck had said earlier, we're playing multiple sports on these fields and striping them from all these different sports, and that all costs money, whereas we're looking to get these fields put in, and they'll have the striping in, that's gonna save the highway department an awful lot of maintenance on an already overtaxed highway department that's trying to get that work done. I just think it's a good idea to get this done and get the plans done.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Let me just, J.R. Tito, Gristmill Road. I think Paul Lavelle asked an important question just around the financial piece of this. And I've seen some of the preliminary data that these guys have pulled together. By the way, it's yeoman, nobody wants that job. But when you look at it, there is a revenue generating unit that goes along with each hour that you actually sell outward to surrounding towns and men's leagues and what have you. And I think that's what, Paul, you're probably thinking about. What is that worth? And if you look at some of the pro formas that we've seen from surrounding towns, and they vary, and not everybody wants to give up that data, obviously it's private information. We've seen, on the range of $100 to $140 per hour. You multiply that times several hundred hours per annum, and now you're talking $100,000 plus per revenue per the town. And so there is a qualitative piece. I think we talk a lot about that. And I can tell you, without anecdotal evidence, when our kids pick up lacrosse sticks, they would throw lacrosse balls and rocks at the same time. They're deplorable. So that is really something I don't think we should be debating much anymore. But look at the financial piece of this. There is revenue. I would not say, nor should we say, it's a profit center. That's definitely not what it is. But I think there is a way to subsidize this from leasing and renting out the property, number one. And two, I'm sure there will be donations to this. And three, I'm sure people will want to brand their name on some sign if that's what the town perhaps likes. But let's not lose sight of what this is really about. This is about trying to get the design done. Monies that have been earmarked, monies that people in this room have sat here and fought for, so we could apply it to the CPC, which I think everybody with a good brain realizes and agrees with your opinion on moving those dollars to the CPC. But this is what it's really about. Let's get the money into the CPC, let's take the vote, and whether it's 1.6 or 1.8, or whether this thing gets shot down, that's a town meeting. And that's not where we're at. We have to give them the facts to make that decision. We're not there yet. That's why we need your support.
Thank you. Board?
I would just add, JR's points are absolutely valid. Put them down on a piece of paper. They're assumptions. We understand that. And whether it's $100 or $140 or $150 an hour someplace else, and whether it's 1,000 hours or 800 hours, that's not all the important thing. Is there is some notion that there'll be more hours that are excess based on the number of kids we have in town and the expectation number of sports that we have teams participating in. And then what might be some general assumptions on those rental rates. Those are all things that you can quantify easily and put down on a piece of paper so that it's clear for folks they can look at it. You haven't heard one dispute as far as I put in the terms of the qualitative. It's just quantitative because people are going to use their pocketbooks to end up paying for this. It will be tax dollars. And we can make the argument, well, we're just looking at $100,000 or so for a study at this point or a design. That's fair, but why would we be going forward with a design without the intention of producing the product in the end game? And that's going to be something in the tune of $1.5 million and some change, whatever it may be. So I think it's reasonable when we go to town meeting that we do have that presentation fully available so people can look at it. And in fact, if you get it to folks before they show up at town meetings, so they have an opportunity to digest it. And then they can see those numbers and see. Because for the kids, yeah, it's a no-brainer when we think a lot about a lot of these things. But a lot of things are no-brainers still have bills attached to them, and we have to be able to pay for them. And there are competing priorities in town. You all know those competing priorities, so we don't need to reiterate them. The point being, though, is good kids don't break windows. Good kids don't break streetlights. How do you get good kids? One technique after good parenting is indeed good opportunities for the kids to participate in the community. And this is one of those excellent opportunities. So you're not getting an argument from there. But you need to be able to present it to the folks in town, like you said, at town meeting, so they can see this. Because while you think it's a good idea at some level, somebody else may think it's a good idea at this level, and they're willing to spend that much for it. You're willing to spend this much for it. That's the delta.
One more, Fede.
Good.
I agree 100% with everything you said. My concern throughout all this has not been whether we need turf fields or not. This discussion came up when we were working on the track. It was identified then that turf fields would be a thing to look at. It was not done at that time because it's exactly what Paul was just talking about. And how much would the people be able to spend? I think my dilemma throughout all this is, as a Board of Selectmen, we need to consider a lot of things. And in the end, 1.2, 1.3, 1.6, wherever it is coming from somewhere. And our finance team, our department heads, and others work diligently in a capital plan. And we need to have these numbers. We need to know what that revenue is going to be, because when town meeting instructs us, if they so do, that this now becomes a priority, we have a lot to look at, because it shuffles the whole deck as far as our priorities go. And if I think back to when I was fire chief and I would hear this discussion going on, and I had let's say a new ladder truck on the docket, and I felt that was going to get pushed back a year, I would really want to hear why that's so important and why that should take a priority. And that's why what Paul is saying is so important. We need to hear this stuff. We need to know, not just, well, the fields are unsafe. Let's be a little more precise about that. And look at those numbers, and look at the facts, and look at the figures. And this is exactly what I said the last time when you came here. That's the only place my concern lies, not whether we need turf fields. So,
This is getting long. Two things quickly. Go ahead, then I'll get
Take
to...
this really quickly. I
Yep.
agree. We have a fiduciary responsibility to show you what kind of data is there. I think a lot of us are involved in helping try to gather those numbers today, and they're becoming more ready available than they were before, because now people know we're down the path a little bit further. So that's the good news. That's been the long pull so far. What we'd like to propose then is, let's give you a couple pro formas on this one. Let's look at a 10-year window on this, long-term planning, so-called a long-range plan. We'll build some assumptions into good, better, best scenarios on what we think we can get for revenue-generating units, call it an RGU, if you will, per field and per annum, and we'll show you what that is. And I think that's about the best we can do. As you said, the quantitative piece, it's there. The quantitative piece, we have now, and we're almost prepared to show that to you.
Okay, one more, Jerry.
That's basically all we can ask for. And I know this got voted down in Bedford a few years ago, and I would hate to see this go like the pool for the high school a number of years ago, where you had a group pushed an article for $1 million for a swimming pool. When it came to town meeting and that $1 million was up there, people said no. So it's really to your own benefit to show how this is going to be minimal cost to the town and.
Ready?
Okay. What would the board like to do?
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Make a motion that the Board of Selectmen support Article 7, a voter petition for turf fields, and said motion for CPC funding if CPC does reverse their vote on town floor, or motion B, to use another funding source such as possibly mitigation funding for the $100,000 for the design construction for the 2 turf fields as discussed.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. All right.
Can I answer a question just?
Mrs. Scott?
Peter Scott Road. Mr. Bergman said something about CPC can't go back and address the vote that they had already taken earlier, didn't he?
No.
They can amend their
Yes.
vote.
They can amend their vote.
No, what I said was that the Community Preservation Committee couldn't vote after town meeting voted.
After town, all right. thank
So
you.
that's why we had the Article 6 vote from the voters to hear how they feel about turf
It's supposed
fields.
to go here next.
That would give the opportunity
And then I
for the
think we'll make
CPC to change its mind or not before we get to Article 7.
Go with that, too.
Thank you.
Okay, under our schedule here, we're scheduled to talk about something else, but we're going to do the public hearing right now for 529 King Street.
And then we'll come back to Article 8.
Yes.
Yeah.
I might actually, after they're done, I might jump and have the chief.
Oh, sure,
Chief do
yeah,
his, because
sure,
we can do the other
absolutely.
discussion
Yep,
on our
you
own.
bet, yep.
If it's okay with the board, since there's so many moving parts on this, but so many moving parts on what you've had to go through. If it's okay with you, I'd like Keith, and maybe town council, to give us what has gone on in the past, and are we all set with what we need to do?
I think I'll summarize it as best I can, and we have the fire chief here to
You want to come up, Scott?
correct me if I got it wrong, but we've been in consultation with the applicant, with the building commissioner, the fire chief, town council, to try to make sure that we're on the same page about how to allow 529 King Street to open as soon as possible under those uses that we're able to approve. And what that consists of right now, big picture, is that the plan for the restaurant has been amended to exclude the bar for now.
We renamed the bar and removed the bar stools.
Right.
The bar is a restaurant now.
Right,
It's
so,
casual
right.
dining.
So the redesignation of the area known as the bar will now be part of the dining area. Okay. And with the removal of a bar as a use, that allows, that sort of eliminates a hurdle, a roadblock that we had encountered before. Namely, does it trigger the requirement for sprinklers or not? That the sprinkler issue, to my understanding, will be addressed by the applicant filing an appropriate appeal through the state fire marshal's office to the state board that issues waivers on requirements for sprinklers. This board doesn't have the authority to waive those requirements. The state does. The applicant will go to the state and see if they will waive the requirements or not. In the meantime, what that leaves us with is an approvable situation to give them their restaurant license, their common vic license under Chapter 140, which is what tonight's hearing about, as well as their liquor license under Chapter 138, which you previously approved, and which the ABCC has now approved, but with a restriction that the previously approved license includes the bar. So the motion that town council has crafted would essentially exclude the bar as a use from you'll issue the license for liquor, excluding a bar. It'll be table service. And that in order to dot all our i's and cross our t's eventually, that we're going to require that the applicant, in fact, submit us an amended plan so that we can go through the public hearing process and amend the liquor license to exclude the bar as a use and just have the table seating. So it's a two-step process, there's a number of steps here, but in terms of the action that the board takes tonight, you're asked to approve the common victular license, which is the subject of the hearing, and to vote to issue the liquor license, the pouring license that you've already approved, with the restriction that it's subject to the revised plan, which no longer has a bar, and that they will, with the requirement that the applicant submit us an application to remove the bar use from the plan of the premises. And if we're all in agreement on that, then we're ready to go. That there's no impediment to the restaurant at 529 King Street proceeding with the board's favorable vote on the motions that town council has drafted tonight. And I think that's...
Well done, well done.
Yeah.
Chief, you're all set with what was just expressed?
Yes.
From what I understand, the alcohol license will be given to us once the fire inspector and the building inspector have signed off on their final inspection of the premises, which is tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. We passed the health department review today, so...
Congratulations.
And we are absolutely on the same page. Any other issues that arise can be held for later. We're prepared to open the restaurant as a restaurant.
Yeah. And we will be back with a limited entertainment license for no more than 12 times a year that We're not acting on that tonight, but we will act on that as soon as the next order of business.
Yes.
So,
Questions from the board?
Good progress on opening a business in town.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's always
Yes.
good, especially a restaurant.
Yeah.
it is a public hearing, I don't know if there's a public.
Any comments from the public? Boy, there are plenty of, a while ago, it's done now.
Now you can close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Move to
I'll
close
make a
the
motion
hearing?
to, oops,
Motion's been made to close the hearing, is there a second?
second?
Moved and second to close the hearing, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any further discussion by this board? If not, then I would wait a motion.
All right. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote as follows. Relative to Act 3 Restaurant, Inc., doing business as Act 3, 529 King Street, Littleton. On the applicant's revised plan for the premises deleting the bar, subject to passing all local inspections. 1, to approve a common victicular license pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, subsection 6. 2, to issue a retail restaurant license for all alcoholic beverages licensed under Mass General Law 138, approved by the Selectmen on September 8, 2014, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant limit the operation to that shown on the revised plan, and 2, that on or before November 21, 2014, the applicant will file with the Board of Selectmen an application to alter premises setting forth the fact that the bar area has been removed.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Yay.
Congratulations.
Good. Thank
There you
you.
go.
Thanks very
We plan
much.
to open on voting day, November 11th. At the restaurant.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah. no,
Tomorrow's
No.
voting day.
No,
Oh, it's tomorrow? I thought it was
Veterans
November
Day.
11th.
Yeah, Veterans Day. is
Veterans
right.
Day.
Yeah, Veterans Day.
Oh, okay, that's.
Yeah.
Oh, you meant, town meeting is the 12th,
Okay.
so.
So we'll have a place to go after.
The 11th, we plan to open
And
for
sit at a
lunch
table.
and dinner.
Sit at a table,
And
yeah.
sit at a table. Yeah, the bar is
Maybe
now
have a beer.
surface for sculpture.
Yeah, great. Okay. No, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you
Thank
very much.
you.
It's been a long process, but we made it.
We certainly welcome you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, we'll do our best.
Thank you.
Okay, if I might, moving on, thanks. We're supposed to go back to Article 6 for the TIF agreement, but if the board is okay with it, I'd like to bring the chief in to talk about the K-9 right now, so you can, don't have to wait for everything else.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Good luck.
I'm going to stay, so
Okay, so then we'll go right to the TIF then.
thank you, though.
Tried to help you
I
out.
appreciate it. Mr. Chair.
That's one.
Okay.
That's one.
Article 8, the tax incentive financing for 3 distribution center circle.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Where are we on this?
All right, I'll open it up and Steve, jump in, Keith, jump in, please, town council, jump in. So Potpourri is a corporation within the bounds of Massachusetts, looking to move to Littleton, and 3 Distribution Circle, Center Circle, is a location that is currently a vacant lot, basically a field. They're proposing to open a 450,000 square foot building to run their business, which is a catalog-type business. So there was a tax increment financing proposal brought forward to the town from Potpourri. Through negotiations, a month, Keith?
Seems longer. but
Yeah, it could
it's
be,
about
could be
that, yeah.
longer, a month or more. Negotiations, back and forth with the town through town council. The negotiation team, which was myself, Chairman Knox, Mr. Bergman, the town treasurer, assistant town administrator, along with town council. We came to an agreement today, of which the TIF being proposed to be approved by town meeting on the 12th, of which the finances and the financial aspect, I'll turn over to Keith, or Steve to walk us through?
I'll start that the general framework of the TIF agreement would be that it would be for a period of 12 years, and that the incremental value of the improved property would receive a discount from what its tax bill would otherwise be, at a beginning at about 62% in year one, going down to 32% in year 12, 33% in year 12. During which time the town will collect $3.5 million in taxes that we would not otherwise collect, because as with this TIF agreement in particular, that the company is not locating in Littleton, is not moving to Littleton unless they are able to secure a TIF prior to the move. And so if this company does not come, if we do not grant a TIF and they do not come, the amount of incremental taxes that we would get for this property is zero. It's right now, it's a vacant parcel. There would be, that there is not another use standing in line behind it. And so without this TIF, the company won't come, we don't get the additional taxes. The company itself would save a nearly identical amount over the same period of time. It's about a 50-50 split of the amount of taxes that we receive versus the amount of taxes that they would otherwise have to pay if they paid the full amount under without a tax increment financing agreement. The TIF process is basically a jobs program, that there is very limited purposes for which the circumstances under which a town can not receive taxes or to give a tax discount, and the TIF program, which is all about jobs, is a state program which allows a community to grant a reduction in taxes for a company that is producing jobs to a degree that allows their project to get approved by the state. So it's not just a local vote, a town meeting, it's also a vote by the state agency that oversees the TIF program. We've had TIFs, we've had 3 TIF agreements in the past that have gone to the state's Economic Assistance Coordinating Committee. All 3 have been approved. This one, if approved by town meeting, would go in front of the EACC, the State Commission, in December. It's the plan of the company that they would be occupying a new 450,000 square foot building by the spring of 2016. And relocating some 227 jobs in other towns would be relocated here, and they would be adding another 130 jobs over the next 5 years for a total of 357. That sort of job growth would allow them to get approval of a TIF by the state agency. They're investing, I think it's been said, a total of $49 million in Littleton, $35 million in hard and soft costs for the building, and another $14 million in equipment, personal property. They've met with us before. They've been in front of this board. The company is very interested in becoming a part of the Littleton community, having its workers spend money here, go out to lunch here. We're anxious to get those restaurants built so that they have someplace in town to go to lunch, but that they would be contributing to the economic life of the community. But specifically, by being able to attract this company for what is a clean business at a site that is near neighbors, and there's lots of uses that could go into 3 Distribution Drive that would not be as neighborly as this use is. We've had great success nearby with FIBA Technologies, another TIF recipient at 53 Air Road. They've been a great neighbor and really have helped to raise the value of that property in that neighborhood. Potpourri Group at 3 Distribution Center Circle would similarly be a contributor to the neighborhood and to the community. So I think it's fair to say, after weeks of negotiations, that the deal that we're bringing forward is the deal that we would need to have in place in order to get Potpourri Group here. There's not some other deal with a different set of circumstances that will bring them here. We have spent a good deal of time understanding what makes them tick, how their finances are arranged, what they need to do in order to make the investments and to be successful. And we've given them a proposal which we think will help them achieve that, while still achieving the financial goals that are important to us of having, we'll see a total of $4 million received from taxes from that property over the next 12 years, and it will be, and let's see, what else have I not mentioned? And also part of the agreement is a one-time mitigation amount of $300,000, which Potpourri Group will contribute once they have their certificate of occupancy for the building. That is, Potpourri and Condyne, the landlord, would jointly contribute the total amount of $300,000, which would be payable when the certificate of occupancy for the building is issued, which would be sometime in early 2016 by current estimates. So that's the proposal. We've been working with Potpourri Group, who would be prepared to have an open house at Condyne's adjoining property at number 1 Distribution Center Circle on Thursday, late afternoon, evening this week, that we'll be arranging for them to tape a program on LCTV so that they can so that the community can get to know more about their business and who they are. And there'll be a town meeting as well to answer any questions on November 12th. So it's a different deal than what we've ever negotiated before for TIF, but it is the deal that we would need to have in place to attract this company to Littleton at this time.
Will they make a presentation during town meeting, or will they just be to answer questions?
They're able to make a presentation. We've had, I don't know what you did for IBM. Well, IBM, we didn't know about them in November of 2006, because they didn't decide to come here until 2007. But for the other 2 TIFs that have happened during my time at 151 Taylor and 53 Air Road, there was information presented about the company in the presentation that we made at town meeting, and the company officials were there to answer questions.
And a little bit different for this particular company, they've been going in front of the planning board the past, 3 or 4 months, presenting plans, so the public has been exposed, those who pay attention to the planning board meetings, about the building itself, the company, and all that, too, so. That's another benefit of the exposure to this company.
I just didn't know whether it would be beneficial to have them make a presentation, because the one thing about the company, and this still has to be finalized, but just like you said, the worries that we had years ago about what might happen to the pre-stress building, and FIBA went in there and took care of that, that's nice. And now you have that property out back, and the neighbors are worried about that. At one time, it was piles and piles of concrete and other things. It might be beneficial for them to make a small presentation of what.
Clean up the site.
Sure.
You sure could.
Just an idea, because, I mean, obviously, from where that piece of property was, and if this goes through, what it will actually look like will be beneficial. And they could explain to the public that it's not gonna, it won't have the traffic problems that a distribution center would have, so.
Keith alluded to it too, and perhaps, because when they gave us the presentation, it somewhat highlighted it and used the term clean industry. Certainly, when you start looking at hazardous waste and things like that, that could possibly be a byproduct of other operations there, this one obviates that sort of possibility. So, it may well, because it shows it as Keith put it, a clean industry.
No, I think,
One point, please.
sure,
I
Jonathan.
just wanted to highlight also, you will see this again, the team structured it such that town meeting will vote to approve a TIF agreement, but that they'll approve your execution of a TIF agreement in its final form before submitting it to the ACC. So, Joe, to your point, if questions are raised at town meeting, there will even be a chance to tinker with the agreement.
Right.
And get it in the final
Right.
form. Then you'll vote to execute.
Right, thank you, Jonathan, that it's an authorizing vote of town meeting on the 12th of November, that they will authorize the selectmen to enter into a TIF agreement. But the specifics of the TIF agreement we will have negotiated the document, but if there are issues or concerns raised at town meeting, is this provision in there, is that provision in there, we would be able to address those, any concerns like that, and add them into the TIF agreement. It's typically, in all three cases when we've had TIFs before, it's been an authorizing vote of town meeting first, and then the Board of Selectmen would, subsequent to town meeting, execute a TIF agreement. So the TIF agreement has always followed the town meeting vote, not preceded it.
So, when we do this, will the agreement be disclosed 100% at town meeting floor?
We can disclose what we have. I mean, we have a draft agreement right now. We have the business terms, which are the percentages, the starting value of 1.6 million as the base value on which increments would be calculated, and the 300, and in a host community agreement, which is not subject to town meeting approval, a $300,000 mitigation contribution. So
The 1.6 is the land, the 16 is the building.
1.6 million is the base value in the TIF agreement.
Correct.
Yeah.
So will we disclose the specifics of the host agreement at the same time?
I sure hope so.
It's part of the business.
It's part of the, we just disclosed them. I mean, that's it. So 300,000 for.
Well, the difference is, what isn't disclosed is what is proposed for an earmark. And
Well, the board ought to discuss that then. By way of disclosure.
And I had made the suggestion that the 300,000 be earmarked for the turf fields.
And to, take that a step further, I was a proponent of that being a general category of recreation, that the board would later use the mitigation funds at its discretion.
Might it be to our benefit to put Article 8 to bed, if we're going to support it
Well,
or
we're going to
not?
have a whole discussion on the host community agreement before it gets approved anyways.
No, I'm with you on
you know.
that. That's what I'm saying. Is it
Maybe
to our
at a
benefit to
later
put this to
date.
bed right now?
Sure.
And then if we want to have further discussions as to how we'd like to see the HCA put together, because I think that's not pertinent to the article itself.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Paul.
All right, I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen, you want to open up to anybody, and does anybody have any issues?
I'm sorry, guys. I know it's a late hour. I believe you're in a bit of a strange kind of bind, because anyone reading your warrant and listening to the proposal tonight will take as absolutely unfounded the assessment on which the TIF is based, number one. Anybody who does a little bit of homework on properties around the area will discover that commercial properties, in fact, I just came out of a couple of meetings with some locals in the immediate area, and the average cost, even in a distressed property, and we'll get to that in a moment, is somewhere between 15 to 18 million. Not 1,600, it's somewhere around 15 to 18 million total. When you take the taxes that would be due on that, it turns out we are in effect paying Potpourri. Paying Potpourri to give us back roughly $4 million over 12 years. We're paying them to do that. I don't see the benefit yet. The question is, what is the job benefit in the TIF for this town? You mentioned, I believe, in the warrant, 180-some jobs. Those jobs are A, minimum wage, B, there is no enforcement possible. Further conversations with TIF, shall we say, TIF's been granted in other towns. First of all, they're not successful as economic tools for building. There is not a single study in the United States, not a single one, that shows that TIFs do anything. The results are at best negative, for a variety of reasons. Tonight's not the night to go into it. But the clue is here. The town gives up tax dollars, in this particular case, with nothing, absolutely nothing assured that is solid, equally solid to the tax deal given to the company, the discount, on the job side. You're looking at me puzzled. Let me explain to you what...
No, I'm just listening.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were looking at me. What am I talking about? Okay. The job, there is no way under the law that this company can be forced, required by law, to hire 180 people from Littleton, much less from any town. They just need to hire 180 people from somewhere, hopefully from Massachusetts. That's it. Now, if they were coming here, if their motive for coming here was not just to get the tax discount, but to employ the particular skills of the residents of Littleton, enthusiasm should be there. But there's nothing. This company's made no such proposal, and they're not in a position to make such a proposal. That's not the kind of company that you're inviting into the town. This is not IBM that may hire 10 people with the requisite background and training to work there. This is basically a non-productive, non-R&D oriented company. It basically is a cash flow company. Catalog companies like this are called cash flow companies, and they're called cash cows by their investors because of the tax benefits they bring to the investors. They're not doing anything wrong. They're held, at the moment, Potpourri is owned by another group, which is in turn owned by a publicly traded company. Okay? They're third down. Okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, except that every time we give them something in the way of a tax discount, it filters up. They're doing nothing wrong, they're making money. What does Littleton get? I'm still waiting to hear in the presentation here. You talk about, oh, yes, that's right, we get roughly 300, it averages out, if you listen very carefully to what Mr. Bergman said, it averages out to $360,000 a year. It starts out low because we want to satisfy their financial requirement, and then ramps up. But it's averaged out to $360,000. When I work the numbers back out, boy, you guys are very close to giving them, whether you meant to or not, a residential tax rate. That's where you're very close to. You're very close to a residential tax rate. Now, the nice thing about a resident who owns a home paying the average median cost of $450,000 a year is they actually spend money in Littleton. They actually go to the grocery store, they'll go to the point, they'll do, the show multiplication factor on a residence is easily 7 to 8 times what it is on a business, and on this business, I can say we could be 10 and 20 times better. My deep concern here also is there is a sort of a fairy dust notion that somehow or other that by bringing in this company, we're going to get tax dollars we wouldn't otherwise get. You're absolutely right. By bringing this company, you will get tax dollars you otherwise wouldn't get. Why aren't you getting them? Why are you settling for, why have you settled for as little as it sounds to me like you've settled for, which is $360,000 a year? Something doesn't compute here. Now, you want the one-shot deal for $300,000 for a mitigation fee to pay for the turf? That's fantastic. You're done. You're done. But show me the jobs, which is what TIF by law is required. There is nothing, I'll repeat, nothing in the statement here that locks this company other than a casual oversight by the state. And by the way, the Commonwealth has every interest to see this deal done because they're making a small contribution, the rest of which falls on us. So from a bureaucratic standpoint of view of the state and frankly the local government, this is a great deal. But for the town, in town meetings, someone's going to notice that there's a big discrepancy between the investment being made, the assessment, and what the town actually is entitled to get. The moment, it is not our responsibility to help clean up that site. That site is owned, by the way, not by Condyne. Condyne is a developer. It works for a company called Foursquare in New York. Okay, they are the actual owners. Condyne may have a piece of it. They may get a reward of a piece of it. They're handling the rental. But the fact of the matter is that there's nothing in the agreement that in a solid way benefits the town. And when I hear this is the only deal that Putbury will accept, we don't know that because I don't think we have yet presented our, quote, best deal. And the best deal means best for us. Why are we investing in a privately held company to help them finance? Somebody in the town meeting office is going to get up and say, hey, I'm going to open up a business. I want to employ all Littleton folks. Where's my tip?
Come to us. Come to us.
And the chances you understand very clearly this board approving it approaches, or anyone approving a TIF under those circumstances, approaches zero exponentially. This is known as corporate welfare. If you want to see corporate welfare in action, I hate to take a term, this is what it is. And they don't work, and it's for a very good reason. Sure.
If zero TIF is approved, is it a good deal to have that company come to town?
Absolutely. Any company that contributes to our tax base in a significant way, fantastic. There's nothing wrong with this business that isn't legal, clean.
And I'm talking about whether it's legal, clean, or anything. You're speaking more to the benefits of the town. And
right.
the town people and the taxpayers. And that's even actually one of my notes, is a benefit to the town, so to speak, and there's also a benefit to the individual taxpayers in town, the residents, so to speak.
The TIF is designed to improve, the TIF is designed, let's be clear, for job creation. That's what it's for.
Put that aside for the moment.
Okay?
If we give zero TIF, is it of value to the town in the way you've described value this evening?
If we give them nothing and they just come in?
Yeah.
And they pay their full tax? No problem with that at all.
Okay, you know where I'm headed with the next question.
Of course I do.
10%.
Something's better than nothing. That's
No,
what-
no, no, 10%. Still a good value to the town?
No, I've already worked some numbers, Paul, so.
No, but Mike, is it? Because you're making the argument, this particular deal is a bad deal.
Yeah.
So now I want to
think-
take you to where we
Yeah.
come to that,
The
you say, this is where
threshold
your zero game is.
Yeah, the threshold starts around, if we get 70% of the taxes, that's when we start seeing a benefit, when you take out the cost to us, and the ability to deploy that amount of money, that is not insignificant, given the property, given the true value.
But your
of the
assessment
property.
is 70%, and we're at
Yes.
50%.
Yeah.
So, we're 20% under your zero
Oh, yeah.
game.
Yeah, and that's threshold. That is threshold.
Okay. So we've at least closed the gap a little bit in our
With
discussion.
me, yeah.
No, but you're the one presenting the argument.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
We've
yeah,
closed the
yeah.
gap with you at least somewhat here.
With me, you've done it, but,
Okay.
yeah. But I'm not saying, I'd love to be in the room with Potpourri, a month ago.
Appreciate it.
But, yeah.
I think that, as, the 20%, for your argument and our argument, and the way to hear what, bless you, what the company has originally proposed, our back and forth through the negotiations, I do believe that, they wouldn't, they're out looking. So for the low-impact business that is coming to town, I think that we got a great deal.
All I have to say is that someone in town meeting, it doesn't have to be me, someone in town meeting is going to ask about the valuation, the true valuation on this property.
Well, the valuation was a stickling point with us, because, that's going to be the foundation of the TIF. So we had our expert come in to do a valuation of the property. The original Potpourri valuation was very low. We went very high. We had a consultant come in to say, based on your knowledge of the appellate tax board and your knowledge of representing this town in the appellate tax board, what is your valuation of this said property, based on the recent sale of the property and the construction of this new facility? He came back with between a $17 and a $19 million valuation. TIF is based on an $18 million valuation.
With a big discount.
With a 50%.
Yeah, we're now in a
Discount.
dialogue, and I don't want to interfere with your
No.
the meeting here, but the owner of the property, Foursquare, presents itself, and investigation reveals this is who they are. They invest in distressed, complex, underpriced, difficult to, as it were, dispose of properties. That's what they do. They collect them, then get developers to join hands with them on a fee or sharing basis to, as it were, sell the property. Now, how long have they owned this property?
When was the property sold?
A year
2 years ago, a year ago?
They bought it in 2013.
Okay. The average time that these folks hold on to stuff? So here's...
But see, Mike, I understand that. That's a
What I'm
business,
saying-
that's a
all I'm
business
saying to you
model
to give
for a
you an
private
idea.
citizen and a private company.
Yeah, but all I'm saying to you is if you're going to look at value, ask yourself what the market is telling you. I'm not talking about the intricacies of the business are boring. I'm talking about what the market is telling you. If this investment company is sitting on this property for 2 years, okay, they know what its value is and they're waiting for someone to come along and execute that value. They happen to have a company whose business model fits that. Okay? It fits, and it's all done to the benefit, it's all manipulation of tax law. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just asking, we ought to think about ourselves in an equivalent fashion, the best we can. We don't have the instruments at our disposal. I'm talking about the town. So the only thing we've got is our right to collect taxes based on a 29% rate. That's what it is. That's what you're stuck with kind of stuff. That's what it is. If you want to give them a TIF discount, answer the question to your own satisfaction and benefit to the town. You are, in fact, at the 50-50 level. Paul, my objection to it mainly is you're paying them basically $500,000 to get $300,000 out of it.
I'd offer, Mike, that you're saying we're leaving money on the table, not that we're paying them.
No, we're paying them. We're paying them. Because the moment that property goes on the books, okay, it becomes part of our tax roll, instantly, it has an $18 million valuation and it has that taxes connected with it. And if you go to, I mean, it's contract law. I mean, I'm not making this stuff up. So at that point, it no longer is fairy dust. It is real. There's end number of dollars, somewhere between $6 and $7 million of taxes due over a period of time to this town. We're not doing it. So that's really, we're doing more than leaving money on the town. We're basically making an investment, except there's no way for us to reap the rewards for that investment from Potpourri. There's no reward for us. Find the reward, and I think you'll muffle any criticism from the floor at the town meeting. Find the benefit. I'm sorry, I
Gotcha.
apologize.
No, it's
Thanks.
all good.
Thanks.
It's all good.
So,
Okay.
moving on.
All right, I'll make a motion that we support Article 8, tax increment financing for 3 distribution center circle.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Do you want to go through quickly which article everyone has, or do you want to meet with Matt first?
Thank you. Thanks. Do the K-9.
Can always be an arduous process.
Okay, we'll go on to 8A, Police K-9 Unit, and we have the chief here.
Thank you for your gracious offer earlier, Mr. Chair.
I almost took it away. I almost took it away, too.
After a while, I was regretting my decision.
Speak to Mike about that.
First off, I
Thank you,
was
Mike. You did a
notified
good
that
job.
we got the Stanton grant, which is a $39,000 grant for the K-9, which I originally had talked to you about when you gave me the initial go-ahead. So we've started the process of currently picking a handler. They don't release anything until after the handler is picked. So there's a process being put together for that with a couple of handlers. One that currently works for the department, Border Town, and then one of the sergeants will go through that process and we'll pick a handler. So that's moving forward there. Second part of Mr. Avella had asked that the police union or the foundation come back with some plans. I've got their initial plans. And again, some of it's in the formation stage. They have formed the 501c, got the checking account, they got their post office box, they're got some initial mailings. They're following up on the contacts that came after the Littleton Independent story. They did a small fundraiser at another fundraiser they were having for one of the officers who was out on a long-term illness. And they're going to start their plan so far is everything they're doing is community-oriented, awareness and fundraising. So at this point, what I'd like to do is report back probably around the 1st of January, let you know how their initial mailing and fundraising goes to the people that have contacted them. They've been contacted by several of the large businesses and the business communities. They're going to do some outreach. They want to get to Rotary and some of the other places and start their outreach. They're obviously in the ground floor. They did not purposely put numbers in here as of yet because they were waiting. This week they're having a meeting with 3 or 4 interested residents who came forward who are actually on the board for the foundation. So right now, I feel real good about the contact I've had with people within the community and the contacts that have come into me, and I see it moving forward. They're looking at it more as a, if you will, again, it's community outreach for the PD, even though it's a foundation to help support the K-9 program. So that's how we're really looking at it, is to keep this a community-wide project. And police explorers have approached us, some of the Boy Scout troops have approached them. They're really working on a multifaceted approach to this, but it's all new. It moved forward, I guess the plan I put forward right now is coming to fruition, and I'm liking where we're heading.
Questions from the board?
No. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Who's setting up the foundation?
The police union actually set up the foundation, but as much as it may be the union, it's going to be more, I think it's going to be more resident-based in the end than it's going to be union-based. They'll certainly, they want to participate in many of the things, obviously, which you'll see by like the motorcycle ride. They had, it comes out kind of funny, but the tournament they just had for Pat O'Donoghue, this is kind of morphing into this larger tournament. I never realized how big a tournament play cornhole was and how some of these things that you couldn't believe how these people are curving this bag and, you know, it's crazy stuff. And they play like 3 and 4 tournaments a weekend. And I never even knew it really existed. So,
Very cool. It's great to see.
So how can folks in town get access to this foundation and
they're gonna be
find
putting a
more?
mailing out, they're setting up a GoFundMe site also, which will let them go online, and they're gonna get their name, their address, the P.O. box, there's a P.O. box in the depot now, that'll get out there on, we'll put it out on the, we're gonna put it on the Facebook page, and, you know, we'll also put permission to put it on the department's website, up there if anyone wants to contribute, and then there'll be some direct mailings, not so much to citizens at the beginning, but to some of the businesses that have asked us already for information. That'll be going out early next week.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
And just a quick 2-second update, the first round of the assessment center for deputy chief occurred today. The assessment center for sergeants is tomorrow. And we're moving along. I found them quite interesting. I sat through all of them today, and it was a very worthwhile process, so.
How many applicants for sergeant?
3 and 3. 3 for
3 and
deputy, 3 for sergeant, for the one positions for both of them.
Very good.
Great.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Chief.
Aside from all that, did you get my email?
Yes, I did. I sent you back on the plaque.
Yeah.
I sent you back. I'll do some research on it. I don't remember what the brass plaque cost.
Okay.
And did you get the other email on, for the 300th committee?
Yes.
Okay.
All set. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's been submitted too, I think. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. 8B, staffing vacancy review. Sad to hear that Anita's going to retire.
As am I.
I certainly enjoy going to that office, and I know when I go in that office, I'm going to get needled to hell, but
Absolutely.
it's still fun to go in there, so I
If
hate
you
to
go
see.
right around the corner, she can continue to do that.
Yeah.
Yes, it's with a heavy heart that I inform the board that Anita has announced her intention to retire effective March 31st, 2015. And adding up all of her years of service upon her retirement date, she'll have some 38 years of service to the town. She started in the Conservation Commission in 1977. She transitioned over to the school department in 1981. And then she's been with the assessor's office since 1987. So she is just a tremendous resource to my department, the Board of Assessors. It's not often that you get to see a length of service at this level. Anita has graciously offered to, or what she's requested to do, is to reduce her hours from the 35 that she's currently budgeted down to 21 effective January 1st, in order to allow us some period of time to cross-train. So she'd work 3 days a week. It would allow us to go now and search for a replacement at the same level, an assistant assessor, and give her some period of time to kind of transition the new person into the department, which is a tremendous benefit to us, again, with her long-term service. The institutional knowledge that she holds is something that, you really can't write down into a book and get, everything that she's got stored up there. So I really appreciate the offer that she's done to provide that for us. The Board of Assessors office has a full-time equivalency of 2.75 employees, full-time equivalents. The administrative, or the chief assessor, is full-time at 40 hours, and we have 2 assistant assessors at 35 hours a week, or full-time. We are looking to replace Anita's position at the same level that she currently is, so at 35 hours a week. In looking at the staffing and the budget to do that type of a transition, it could cost the department about $2,500, depending on when a new person was brought in and the number of hours that you transitioned through that period. But I would look to see if I can absorb that in the other departments, between my department, the collector, and the treasurer and assessors. I think I can manage it without going for additional funding in the spring. That would be my goal, but again, it would depend on when we brought somebody in. In looking to the future, both of my assistant assessors are retirement eligible at this point, so it was prudent to kind of look out with Catherine Miller to see what would we do in the future if the other assistant assessor notified us with her intent to retire. So we looked at the staffing level, and I just, again, I'm not making a request now, but I wanted to let you know that should the other individual present us with her notice to retire, we'd look at restructuring that position to provide a little bit more technical service. So we'd look to hire, instead of a 35-hour-a-week assistant assessor, we do two separate positions, a non-benefit eligible assessing field inspector at 15 hours a week, and a lower grade 5 assessing clerk for 30 hours a week. That would provide some counter service at a lower level and the technical service that we need to get out in the field. We have a lot of field work, especially with the new buildings, the new commercial buildings that are coming online. We do all of our own inspections in-house, so we have a lot of outside work that needs to be done. And I think that this would be done, it would definitely be done at a budget-neutral cost, and it would provide a better level of service for the department. So, we're going to miss it.
That's for sure. Yes, I am.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to grant the request of the Assistant Town Administrator for Finance and Budget and the Chief Assessor under the Staffing Vacancy Review Policy to fill the full-time benefited position of Assistant Assessor, grade 9.
Second.
Moved in second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, if we take out, moving on, thank you very much.
Could I just ask a question? Let's suppose what we just did. Is Anita dropping her hours just so that there's money available to pay? Or this is a personal thing that
It's
she'd
more
rather
of a
do?
personal issue. She really wants to be involved in making sure that the department transitions.
No, I'm happy to that, but, no, going from the 35 to the 21, does she feel that's necessary to cut her hours so you have money to pay somebody to, work together with her?
We had a long conversation with Anita, and I said, I want you to do what's best for you. And she said, what's best for me is to leave feeling that I've left the department in a good place. She was ready to retire pretty much December 31st, but really wanted to participate and make sure that everything was smooth going forward.
We said March 31st, right?
I'm sorry, she was ready, she was looking to retire December 31st, but she really wanted to stay on at a part-time, 21-hour-a-week capacity through March, just to make sure that everything was.
Yeah, public math is always dangerous. It's about $4,500 if she worked full-time for those 3 months, the difference. Would that be about right?
Yeah, I don't think.
The delta between 21 and 35? Now, if it's something that she doesn't want to do, that's a separate thing, but if it was a case of we need to find, $4,500 to get that good transition, because while what's good for Anita is important to all of us, what's good for the town is also, and that solid transition that takes place, all I'm offering is if we thought it was necessary for that, would we be willing to sprinkle $4,500?
I did have a really lengthy conversation with her and Kathy, and she really likes the 21 hours a week.
Done.
We talked about
That's it. Just wanted
doing
to be
that.
sure.
But thank you.
Any other questions?
For sure.
All set? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Last thing tonight is to go over who's going to cover which articles. So if you take out that sheet that was connected to Articles 6, 7, and 8, I will take 1 and 2.
I was going to offer to go 1 through 3 and let you guys fight out the rest.
We beat you to it.
I beat you to it. 1 and 2 I got.
Used your tactical advantages.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. Well, I could have gone 1, 2, and 10 because I wanted, but I didn't do that. I figured I'd go straight down the list. 3, anybody?
3, I'll do 3.
McCurdy has 3. All, that, you have all parts of that, right?
Yep.
Tax number 4, property tax deferral for seniors.
I can speak to that.
Villa.
And it's kind of
And the
tied
next one,
5,
Yeah, 4 and 5 go together.
Article 6. That's Jimmy Carr's. That's-
Yeah, Mr. Clark.
I
You
found
will
out
be in
today,
Atlanta?
I let Mr. Bergman and Mr. Knox know, I was asked/volunteered as told that I am going to Atlanta, Georgia, leaving Tuesday morning and returning on Thursday night. So unfortunately, I will not be at the town meeting on Wednesday. Powers above me. I have bosses.
Well, I'd be happy to take it. Maybe you could educate me before you go a little
Sure.
bit on how you would handle it.
Sure, absolutely.
Can you do it by Skype?
Can I do it by Skype? No, we're not, we did not pass that law.
We didn't know.
We did not. I
So
would
you
have.
won't be voting, you'll
But we-
be presenting.
Yeah, but you could Skype, we'll bring in an iPhone, and you could Skype in, and
Sure.
All right, turf fields, I'll take it, but that's a petition, private petition, but I'll take it for the board, so
so who's taking 6? Is,
Melissa has 6.
okay. Joe's going to take 7?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll take it. Damn it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, you can't take 8. Who's
Well,
doing-
I'll take 8 as an explanation of how to start it off, as long as the,
And then we'll,
9, amend the revolving funds, dog law enforcement.
Yeah, I'll do the dogs.
I love dogs.
I hate dogs. I love my dogs.
so you're not going to get the,
I love my dogs.
you're not getting.
No, I love my
8 on the
dogs.
end. Yeah, I hope
People's
I hope
dogs
mine
are
are
the problem.
okay. They've
It's other
been
people's dogs that are problem.
in their cage all day.
Article 10, town bylaw amendment, community preservation committee to add FinCom member.
I can do that.
McCurdy took number 10. 11, town bylaw amendment, finance committee eligibility requirement.
I'm willing to do 11, 12, and 13. I think they're related in a way.
Okay.
11, 12.
And then road acceptances.
Who,
I'm going to do it.
okay, yeah,
Melissa, all right.
because I was just going to say, yeah, you only have,
Yep, I know.
Well, 6 and 14.
I'm on the map.
So,
all right, so we're all set.
all set, all signed.
Can you tell us what to say? Can you tell us what to say?
It's already written in the bold part of the
Oh, we have minutes.
voter thing. That's all you got to say.
Any feedback on the minutes? Are we good? I think the minutes were good. Yeah. Okay, make a motion to approve the minutes from our session on October 20th.
Second.
Moving and seconded to accept the minutes dated October 20th, 2014. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for watching, and good night.
I just found that out today.
Oh, man.
Found that out today.
I need autographs. You guys approved it a while ago.
Wow, that dates way back.
Pending.